Final Fantasy VII, one of the most celebrated games of all time and one of the most broken speedruns, but this wasn't always the case. For most of the game's history, the biggest skip saved 8 minutes as it took you directly into the Hojo fight and skipped doing most of the content in the Midgar revisit. But in 2020, things started to change in a major way. An exploit was found that skipped Cosmo Canyon, which saved about 10 minutes. Then in 2021, Calm Skip was found that saved another 17 minutes. But recently, a skip was discovered that saves more time than all the other skips in the game combined, as it skips the majority of Disc 1. In today's video, we'll be looking at how this new skip works, what it skips, and the other applications that have been found for it. So let's start by looking at how collision works on the overworld and get to the bottom of this skip. But one thing you won't want to skip is this video's sponsor, Old School RuneScape. A huge new event has just arrived with the Raging Echoes League that goes live on November 27th and runs through to January. Leagues aren't just regular gameplay either, as they boost experience rates, loot, and have relic power-ups that break typical gameplay, allowing for builds that aren't normally possible and let you theorycraft in a low-floor, high-ceiling skill environment. The Promotional League's membership package lets new and returning players who join between November 25th and December 3rd have a membership that lasts for the league's full 56-day duration, so you get extra membership time for a cheaper price. The leaderboards are perfect if you want to track your progress and dominate other players, as they combine high-stakes progression with deep gameplay. And Old School RuneScape is perfect for a second-screen game, so while you're watching my videos, you can easily make progression in a league. To download Old School RuneScape and get the special membership package, click the link in the description or pinned comment before time runs out. And with that, let's get back to the video. The key to understanding how Disc 1 skip works lies in how the game snaps Cloud to a triangle when he's on the overworld, and to do this, it first has to determine which region of the overworld Cloud is standing in. The overworld consists of a grid that is 28 by 36 for a total of 1008 overworld regions. This is a lot of data to load all at once for a PlayStation, so the developers coded the game so that up to 32 of these regions will be visible to the player at once. As you move around on the overworld, regions that are too far away to be seen will be unloaded from memory so that new regions you're likely to encounter can be loaded in, with all of the data for the 32 regions being stored inside of the world map mesh heap. The reason the region is important is because when trying to figure out what triangle Cloud is standing on, the game first looks at what region he's in, and once it's determined his region, it then looks at the triangles in that region by iterating through all of them until it finds the one Cloud is standing on. Once the triangle has been identified, some calculations are performed to snap Cloud to a particular y-coordinate on that triangle, with the game then adding that triangle to a special list we'll call Cloud's Triangles. Cloud's Triangles are important because they don't actually store any data themselves. Instead, they contain a pointer that tells the game to look at the mesh heap anytime it needs data on Cloud's triangles. However, there's one big problem with how this system works. Because Cloud's triangles only contain pointers, it's possible to create a programming error known as a stale reference. In some programming languages, there are variables known as pointers that store the memory address of another object. But if the object the pointer is attached to gets deleted and the pointer doesn't, some very weird things can happen, as the pointer will start interacting with whatever data replaces the original object it was associated with. When a triangle is added to Cloud's triangles, it creates a pointer that is associated with that triangle in the mesh heap, and if you recall, the game will delete entire regions and their associated data from memory if you get too far away from them. So you might be wondering, what happens if you add a triangle to Cloud's list, then move away from that region to deload it? Unfortunately, nothing, as Cloud's triangle list only has room for 6 triangles. So by the time you walk far enough away from the triangle you're trying to make a stale reference to, the triangle and its pointer will have long been deleted from memory due to other triangles getting added to the list. However, there is a workaround to this. When Cloud mounts, rides, or dismounts a chocobo, the game doesn't add or clear triangles from Cloud's list. So if you touch a triangle as Cloud, then get on a chocobo and move to a faraway region, then dismount and touch a new triangle, the previous triangle in the list will now have a stale reference as its region data was overwritten by data from a new region, but its pointer is still active in memory. If you're familiar with stale references, you may be wondering if this means players can now create custom cinematics and bosses like they did in Ocarina of Time. And the answer is not quite, as the stale reference was located in a region of the world map that Cloud currently isn't in, so the game has no reason to interact with that triangle. But you might be thinking, what happens if we go back to that region and touch the original triangle again? For complicated reasons we don't need to get into, if you return to the original triangle after unloading it, the game ends up thinking it has 3 triangle vertices at the same point, which is known as a degenerate or point triangle, as it has no surface area or angles. Since the developers never expected Cloud to stand on a point triangle, they never wrote logic for how to handle it. And because of this, if Cloud does stand on a point triangle, the game will always think he's touching one no matter where he walks to, resulting in Cloud ignoring all other collision, with this state being referred to as cloud surfing. In theory, this should let you walk anywhere you want within a region. However, triangles are still getting added to Cloud's list as he touches them, and once the stale reference gets removed from the list, Cloud will get locked in place if he's touching a triangle that's not walkable, or the glitch will end. This research is fundamental to Disc 1 skip and was the basis for Com skip back in 2021, as this region had a walkable triangle on the other side of the river that Cloud could reach before the stale reference was removed from his triangle list. So why wasn't Disc 1 skip found immediately after Com skip? The person that did the bulk of this research, a Zephyr, was looking at code that isn't fully understood, and because of this, he never realized that there was another way to create a point triangle. Which brings us to October of 2024. On October 16th, Deano and Kuma posted videos of them getting out of bounds into the ocean, but one thing in particular caught Ace's attention. In Kuma's vid, Cloud was snapped beneath the ocean. After some investigation, Ace realized that Kuma was achieving cloud surfing in a way he didn't think should be possible. So he dug into the code a bit more and discovered that what Kuma and Deano were doing was a second method of attaining a cloud surf. The details of this method are technical, but at a high level, what's happening is that the maximum number of triangle vertices stored in a region of the world map is 122. However, the actual number of vertices in each region can vary. What this means is that in some cases, when you perform the cloud surfing glitch, the game will be reading vertex data for a region with a high number of vertices. But when it comes time to perform calculations for where to put Cloud, the game ends up using a region with a small number of vertices due to the stale reference. And since the game sees it has less vertices than expected, it fills the rest with garbage data, which can result in very weird things, like Cloud getting placed beneath the ocean. Once Ace had all of this figured out, he started looking for cloud surfing setups using this new method, and by overwriting certain regions' data with others, he was able to create a point triangle using garbage data. Once this was accomplished, he realized something. If regions were unloaded and loaded in a certain way, there wasn't any reason that Cloud couldn't walk across the ocean after leaving Midgar and go directly to the Forgotten City at the end of Disc 1. So Ace, Deano, and Kuma set about finding a way to make this happen. It took them about 24 hours, but after much trial and error, Deano produced a save file where he appeared to have cloud surfed all the way to the Forgotten City, and after some testing, Kuma confirmed it live on stream.
We got it! 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 No! We got it! We got it! We made it! We made it! Oh! We made it!
While this was exciting, it was still a long way from being possible in a real-time setting, as the setup required extensive use of save states and a script to help execute the movement. But the theory was proven. By making enough world map regions surfable, you can travel to the end of Disc 1. The glitch hunting team was very optimistic they could make this skip human viable, and over the next 3 days, they worked around the clock to eliminate the need for save states and scripts, with Kuma creating a setup that was RTA viable. However, before the community could celebrate too much, the setup was only possible on the PC and HD console versions of the game due to those versions having glitches or features that let you turn off overworld encounters. The PS1 version, which is the most popular to run on, doesn't have a way to turn off overworld encounters, and if you get a single encounter during the setup or execution of cloud surfing, the glitch will end. Manipulating encounters is possible, as the current world record on PlayStation follows a step route, but a step route only works for non-world map encounters, as the game uses a different system to determine RNG on world maps than it does in dungeons. When it comes to the overworld, the in-game time is used as part of the encounter calculation, which does make overworld step routes possible, as one is used in the setup for Com skip, but it requires starting the manip at certain in-game times, which means you may need to wait or even change the setup based on when you arrive to the starting point. This wasn't the worst thing about the route Kuma created. created, however, as it had you travel through the Zoloms area, which advances the RNG based on Cloud's movement while you're inside of it, adding a lot of indeterminacy to the setup. To solve this issue, Ace routed a skip that avoids going into the Zoloms box. However, Ace's route also had a problem, as it requires you to save and reset, which can alter the in-game time requirement based on how long your console takes to load the game. So, to fix this issue, he spent 10 days creating a setup that was as lenient as possible. It requires a lot of specific movement and precise rotations of the camera to help load and unload certain overworld regions. So the map is used to help get Cloud on the correct alignment, but if you follow the steps, you can skip to the end of Disc 1 after leaving Midgar. So how much content does this skip? Getting out of Midgar takes an hour and a half, then you have about 2 hours of content before getting to Disc 2. But with the skip, you make a beeline for the final boss of Disc 1, Genova Life, after leaving Midgar, skipping 8 other bosses and saving just over an hour. This has a profound effect on the speedrun, however, as you're missing key items, party members, important enemy skills, and a ton of experience. So a new experience route and updated boss strategies needed to be developed, as the party was severely underleveled for Discs 2 and 3. But there was something strange that happened as well. Because you skip so much content, certain game flags don't get set, and due to this, despite watching the cutscene where Aerith meets her end by Sephiroth, she never gets removed from the party, meaning she's fully playable on Discs 2 and 3. This is actually huge for the speedrun, since Cloud Surfing skips adding Cait Sith to the party and results in Cid getting added at level 1. So for parts of the speedrun, Aerith ends up playing a large role, with Red 13 becoming the third party member in the late game along with Tifa and Cloud. At this point, you might be wondering, if this can skip so much content on Disc 1, what about Discs 2 and 3? If you perform Disc 1 skip, you'll need to use it again on Disc 2 in Mount Corel, as certain game flags don't get set, as you're supposed to pull a lever on Disc 1 that sets a bridge, but since this is skipped with Cloud Surfing, the bridge never gets set. This results in a soft lock, so to get around it, you either need to backtrack through Mount Corel, move the high wind, then backtrack again so you can reach the train segment and avoid the soft lock, or Cloud Surf. Since backtracking takes a ton of time, Cloud Surfing was implemented where you walk through the mountain without worrying about the bridge. But this wasn't the only application for Cloud Surfing on Disc 2. The diamond weapon fight normally requires you to wait at the beach for it to arrive so you can fight it. But if you set up a Cloud Surf, you can go into the ocean and get closer to it, saving more time than waiting for it to walk to the beach. Given that this skip fundamentally changed the run, it's currently only allowed in the any % category on the leaderboard, with the historical any % no slots continuing to exist as a separate category. Thanks to Ace Zephyr for help with this video, and if you want to learn more about the history of the any % run before this skip was found, click on this video here, and I'll see you in the next episode of Abyssoft Z.